So I have some 10 minutes before we have to leave, and I wanted to talk about yesterday. I ended up having this different type of therapy. I believe it's called access consciousness, and I feel like from the name, it is something that like kind of like interesting, like you're trying to access, your brain. But from doing it, I was a little skeptical. I'm not really a believer in things, and by things I mean I don't mean just religion. I've had a hard time believing people, institutions, ideas. It's just how my brain works. So, like when, the lady who was doing the therapy, like she was explaining like the things that were supposed to happen and what's going to go on from now on, I really had a hard time, like believing that because there's a lot of things about energy and about how you're just throwing things out of the universe. The universe can kind of like throw back things back at you, and like you have to have like these affirmations and you have to say these things throughout the whole day. That is also something that I didn't really like because basically I have to, there's this whole thing about doing stuff outside of, like the usual like no session, and a lot of things. I mean, like there's always things to do, and I am okay with like doing things as long as I kind of like believing them, or I am not believing them, but like I think that they work. There's something about them. Also, something else that I didn't really like was because basically like I think that the session itself, like it did wield some results. Like I was having like lots of thoughts and lots of ideas. They came back to me, and I think that they were important, and then they were things that I had to address, and those like they were relevant. But at the same time, I'm like I felt like everything was remained in my head while I need an outlet. And according to this, thing that they're doing, like you can't say those things because you're affirming them. You are, kind of like decreting them, and you're not supposed to say them. Things about how you are, and also like this whole thing about me because I'm bipolar, and how like she's talking like like I was bipolar, and I had to say this, and that she's not telling me to stop taking medication, but she did start taking like some of the medication after doing this therapy, this course. It's not a course, but like this thing for like longer period of time. And I don't know, man. It's just that I just was very. I mean, I believe I listened to her. Like I I didn't say anything snarky or rude or anything. But in my head, I wasn't really. I don't think these things they work basically, and that's all the things about information. It just seems like a lot of homework, and I don't know. I think like regular therapy, like you do have, it's not homework, but throughout the week, between sessions, you have a lot of like breakthroughs. Sometimes you have also moments where like you're thinking or reflecting, and this is kind of homework, but it's not the same. I think that this usually these moments like they flow like much better. Like when you are when you just like regular therapy, regardless of whether it is cognitive behavioral therapy or psychoanalysis or EMDR, like all these things, like I think they just flow from you in a certain way. Although like in EMDR, like you have this thing of like you kind of like close yourself because you just want to open and be vulnerable during therapy. Apart from it, it is not really ideal. But yeah, but so I did this, and as I said, like it was interesting because some ideas and some my memories and some thoughts they came back to me, and like those were relevant. And I think that by addressing them, I will be able to live a better life. I think there are some things I might be stuck on, like we have to do with that. I was thinking about particularly like when I was young, like a kid, like thinking like kindergarten, elementary school, how like I was never really the first to be picked for anything, or the first choice of anything. And I think that at a time like these days I don't really care. It doesn't really change anything for me. But when I was a kid, I think I wanted to be a little bit more like liked and appreciated than I was. And I was talking to my mom like, after the therapy about this, and she said that she thinks I am like, she didn't say this as like a bad thing, but she said that like I think I'm more sensitive than other people. And honestly, I think I can kind of like see what she means, because I think I'm more attuned with my emotions and like the things that I'm thinking and feeling, and this makes me a little more vulnerable in some cases. But that's pretty much what we're working on me being like less vulnerable and less kind of like exposed, I guess. Or like you're always going to be exposed, but making sure that like when I'm exposed, these things they don't really affect me as much. But I was thinking about this and how like that started a series of behaviors when I started growing up, behaviors that sometimes I still have to this day, even though there's no need to because I'm no longer vulnerable like that. But for example, I started kind of like maybe started like rejecting people before they could reject me. It's like an example of like this thing taking over and like being like kind of yeah, this really thing how I behave with people. And I think to this day I have this kind of like detached attitude, and I think it's partially rooted on that. Even though I no longer care, the behavior remained, and kind of like it changed and adapted, as time passed. And today I am, I'm no longer as vulnerable, but I think that I still have a difficulty engaging with people. And I mean, part of it is that I just don't have the desire, or I just got used to like not interacting with people because usually there is a certain amount of work and effort that is required, and because I'm not used to it, I don't really want to do that, even though like the results might be good and might be like yeah, it might be good for me. Oh my god, I just remember something that I have to check. Yeah. So, but yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is that, like this thing of like that, so there was still a certain level of hurt, I think. And then I was looking at like the various behaviors I had when I was younger, trying to, include myself in situations, or not include, but make myself more vital. So, I'm not really pushed away. And I think that some of, like the sore points that, I was working, in therapy, I started working in the therapy I did in 2015, like they have to do with that. They are kind of like an extension of like this situation. It's interesting because like I already dealt with the trauma back then, but like there's still some ramifications. I was thinking of things that happened even before the first on-site incident. Is that on-site? The first significant incident that we were working on and that we were trying to like work through. So there's that. Something else that it came to mind that I was also like examining is whether I'm being infantilized. And I think that the answer, short answer is no, but long answer, I think there's certain things about the like my friend of my relationship with my parents that they kind of like they precede the present time, because I'm an adult, but because we had kind of like a strained relationship when I was younger, mostly because like I kind of like pushed people away and I isolated myself. So we were physically in proximity, but like emotionally we were not that close. I wasn't really sharing with them like my challenges and my difficulties and like the things that were happening in my life that were affecting me. And that was really bad because I needed that support, because ultimately it was the thing I was talking about, like me being always like in second plane. It's never happened in my family, so like I think that was something that it kind of like could have strengthened me. Like it could kind of like kind of like made up for like the other sides of my life, or maybe it did. Maybe like it kind of like ended up occurring, and there is that. So yeah, but the thing about visualization, I think it's because I was so detached and like not really having that relationship when I was younger. I think that there's some things about my relationship with them right now that they are kind of making up for the lost time. So there are some things that they might kind of like read as if they were from like me when I was younger. Although I will say, when I compare like right now with like 3 years ago, I can definitely see that, because 3 years ago is when like I started having these developments that kind of like allowed us to get close again. So I think that I was like living like the relationship that we didn't have when I was like a teenager. And like right now, like we're closer to where I am at right now at this point in time. It's just that I think I'm closer to my parents than like the average person. And but I don't want that to change. I think they're a very important part of my life, and I want them to continue to be relevant and very fundamental. Being very present. And I think that there's a way for me to do that it isn't very that doesn't have to do with like me being making up for like the teenage years. And as I said, I think like in these 3 years I was able to land on a point where there's no longer the case, but it's kind of like worth assessing from like 3 years to now, like how it happened, because it happens and there's nothing wrong with that, because I said we're making up for lost time. But like there is something to be said about some areas of this relationship, and I'm going to be thinking more about that from now on. So now I have to go. Bye.